Alright, finally new Dark World support announced for the structure deck that's going to be released in 2 weeks in the OCG. My impression after testing with it for a few hours so far, this is going to be a tier 1 deck, meta contender type of strategy. Draw and Lockbird is going to be a problem for sure, but in a vacuum these cards are too powerful to not do anything, even with Maxi in the format. And in the TCG, this deck is just going to be a very good deck, that's for sure, and it's probably the best structure deck we've gotten in a longer time. I do also think it's probably going to be better than the branded structure deck. Hot take maybe, I don't know. So let's go into it a bit more deeply. So we have Genta, Gatekeeper of Dark World. This card changes the entire strategy, makes it more consistent, and also puts the question in the room if Dark World could maybe not only be a deck that is splashed with danger or vice versa, but could be a deck that is played on its own. You can only special summon it once per turn. You can discard this card to the grave, add the field spell from your deck to your hand. If this card becomes banished and you control a Dark World card, you can special summon this card. Now what you don't realize maybe in the first moment when you read this card is how these two effects interact with each other. The first effect is also not once per turn. There's the two main things about this. So you can discard this, search the field spell, activate the field spell, Gates of the Dark World of course, use its effect, and then special back the Genta, and then you can even bounce back the Genta with maybe Rainbow or Grapha that you discarded off the field spell, and then use the Genta again to search another Gates of Dark World, and Gates of Dark World is also not once per turn. Now, maybe we have to, you know, keep it down a bit. Gates of Dark World, it's not the craziest card in the world, but the fact that you have a consistent way to search it, amazing. Also, this is a level 4, so you can go into Dweller or Dugaris with it, which Dugaris is going to be a huge card for Dark World. Then we have Pearl, Hermit of Dark World. This card is not that great in my opinion. It's a level 1, which is not the best for Dark Worlds. If this card is discarded to the graveyard, you can target one Dark World monster in your grave, special summon it to either field. Then if this card was discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon, I think, an additional of your Fiend monsters that is banished in your hand or in your graveyard to either field. So it's alright, but it doesn't really add anything to the strategy that would be worthwhile, I think. That would be worth playing, because this doesn't really get you any further. You already have to have a lot of Dark World cards in play to make this work, and I don't really know. So this is, I think, the weakest card out of the bunch that we got here. But then we have Dark World Library, which at first, this continuous spell card doesn't really seem that strong, but if you look at it, I think in practice, that's actually amazing. And once you realize that the first effect here triggers the second effect, which I didn't realize in the first time reading it, is actually nuts. So during the main phase, this has on paper weak effect. You can discard a Dark World monster and then your Dark World monsters gain attack. It doesn't really matter. But the second effect, if your monster whose original type is Fiend is discarded by the effect of a Dark World card or an opponent's card, you can discard one card, then draw 2 cards. So it gives you a lot of draw power for the deck. And honestly, with this card also, I can see definitely a pure Dark World deck, which is something I think is very cool, because it sort of stays in tradition with Dark World, because back in the day, of course, was a pure deck and sort of a control type of strategy, not the Danger Dark World deck that we've seen in 2018. You know, puts that back on the map. I don't know, like maybe you don't even need the Danger cards. I will definitely show off 2 versions how you can play the deck in this video. A Danger Dark World approach, which I think is going to be the stronger version for the TCG, but also a pure approach that is more control-ish, where maybe that could also be a viable option depending on how this deck is going to see counterplay as well, because Draw and Lockbird is going to be huge, and Danger cards obviously lose to the Draw and Lockbird. So let's take a look at these 2 versions and then maybe also a replay. In comparison to the last list that I showed off, not a lot has changed, but still some of the cards. And obviously we added Genta, we added one Ceruli, we added one Library. I'll get to that in a moment, but the game plan kind of stays the same. We try to summon Grapha, Dweller, Apollosa, IP, a combination of those cards as much as we can. Basically when we go first, and when we go second, we don't really need a lot of non-engine cards. So a question that a lot of people asked under the last video, I feel like, is why are there no non-engine cards? We need non-engine cards to break boards. But with this deck, it's so powerful going second even with Grapha and all the Danger cards that you just put a lot of bodies on board that you can run over their stuff in the process, that you don't really need non-engine cards, which I think is amazing. Like, it always feels so good to play a deck that doesn't rely on non-engine. You don't have to draw your hand traps to win. And then post-siding, I think this deck has a lot of advantage, but also the disadvantage of draw maybe, but the big advantage of being able to play Lava Golem and Sphere Mode, because these 2 cards are, like, they break the Splite board consistently, especially with the gas that this deck has. I don't think I have to go over every card, but maybe in general, we still play danger cards. Only the level 4 ones are good. We cut Tsushinoko because it's just not good enough of an extender. We can play one Ceruli because the Genta gives a lot of consistency now with the deck, and the library as well a bit that you can search with Snow, of course. And if you have a lot going for yourself, you can search the Ceruli as well, and then maybe hand loop your opponent with Silver, and then bounce also back the Ceruli and the Silver with your Akashic Magician to do it again. But you really have to have a lot for that, and I don't think, also to answer maybe a question that's going to be asked, if maybe a hand loop is going to be viable. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be consistent enough. And if yes, it's going to be a bit of a gimmicky strategy, because then you have to play more Cerulis if you want to pull it off consistently. But Ceruli is such a bad card going second. You really don't want to play more than one of it in your deck. Maybe you could think about even siding multiple Cerulis or Silvers when you go first. But then again, you lose to draw again. So I don't really know yet. The one Ceruli I like though, I am trying it out, and you side this out when you go second. We play 3 Genta, of course, because this is an absurd card, really. And then everything else, we still play Skill Drain in the side deck when we go first, of course. This is still a great card. We only play 2 Beige anymore. 2 Beige is still great because it's a level 4, but you really want to keep the count at 40, because drawing your Accession with your Grapha is quite important. 3 Accession, in my opinion, still correct. Even though it's a bad card to draw in multiples, I still think that if you happen to have this card in your hand with Grapha, it's basically the only way to play around draw. It's also going second, the best card, definitely, because you can destroy cards your opponent controls. You get Grapha on the field, which this is a very annoying card to get rid of. Lastly, we also have this amazing new support card that we didn't go over specifically, but it works really well with Danger monsters or Dark World monsters. You can basically discard 1 card to special a Fiend monster from your grave to the field, but you're locked into Fiends afterwards. So this also triggers your Dark World monsters, which is amazing. And this is what I think a solid starting point for a more control type of version could look like. You don't play as many dangers, you only keep Mothman because it triggers your Dark World monster still. This is just an amazing extender for the deck. But instead of playing many dangers, you play 3 library, which this is just an amazing card in general. You play more Dark World monsters, you play Beige, you could also think about maybe playing more Silvers, but this is a level 4 that gets you to Dugares, which with Genta and Beige, this is already a 2-card combo that gets you to Dugares while also drawing cards and getting pluses. You still play Skill Drain, but you play it in the main deck here instead. You draw a lot of cards, like I said, and historically Dark World, obviously an amazing deck under Skill Drain with so many just big beaters. You also play Lava Golem, but this could be a other non-engine card as well. You could also think about not playing the Mothmans and not playing Lava Golem and just play a lot of traps instead that help you also play around Troll more or less, or gives you more or less a plan B. Cold by the Grave as well in here to counteract the Troll if they have one. So I think this is a deck that could, or a version of the deck that could maybe not lose to Troll as much. Also in the side deck, you know, it's not really the most elaborated thing, but Solemn Judgment is something you could side in this version, and then also maybe a Nibiru, because I think many people are going to think if you play Dark World, you don't play hand traps. These are the 2 starting points that I would look at. What I want to show off is how good this deck is post-siding versus so many combo decks that we have in the format, especially now, because one of the things you always have to ask yourself if you play a new deck is how good is the deck in comparison to the other decks that are in the format. What does it do better than other decks? Why should I even consider playing it? Maybe just because you think it's cool and you like Dark World cards, then you're just like me. But also, if you want to play competitively, you also have to ask yourself, you know, what does this deck do better than maybe the Dragon Link or the Prank Kids deck back in the day? You know, whatever the best deck is in the current format. So this is a game 3 versus a combo deck that puts up Beast and Scythe, basically, with a Veiler in hand as well. And we don't have something like Dark Renemo or something to stop the Scythe, basically. We draw into Lava Golem with Chupacabra, though. We were able to trigger our Snow, which is, of course, amazing. We added a Grapha, I think. And then we use the Lava Golem, go over the Baron and their Naturia Beast, and then we can start playing. And even though we're Scythe locked, you're going to see just like how good this deck is even under a Scythe lock, which is something that is quite relevant in the current format, right? It's something that other decks cannot really say that they're, you know, they're being able to play under a Scythe. So we draw Harpy's Feather. That's of course an amazing draw. You know, you have to point it out that we just draw very well here. But you always, when you test a deck, you want to start from the point where you ask yourself, what is the best thing my deck can do, and how can I get there consistently? If you play danger monsters like in Dark World, of course, it's not going to be always that easy, because you can't really predict what cards you're going to discard, what cards you're going to draw. But that's also part of the fun of the deck, right? And if you can make the deck at least consistent enough to where you don't hit your dangers, for example, or even if you hit your dangers, the situations are not going to be terrible. I think that it really has a shot. Just like in 2018, where the danger monsters are luck-based, but at some point, they're just really good extenders as well if they don't hit them. So they're able to somewhat break our board. We were just able to put up like 5 monsters and have a lot of attack points on the board, so it's going to be easy or difficult for them to clear our board. But now we basically have our entire follow-up. So we drew the Zayas, we drew a couple of cards, and also the Dark World deck now is, the follow-up is just crazy because the fusion spell in the grave, you can add it back to your hand and trigger your Dark World effects every turn, even if you go through Dugaris and don't draw a card for your draw phase. Still, it's so amazing. If you want to see some general combos, we already had all the tools for that a couple of weeks back, and I did a video on it, so if you want to check that out, definitely go for it. If you're interested in getting into the deck and, you know, just check out the Dark World cards, the new ones. Gensa makes the deck so much more consistent. I think this is going to be a tier 1 strategy, so we can already look forward to that, or not, if you're like me and you still have PTSD from the FTK/draw days in 2018. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you hopefully very soon in the next one. Bye.